And greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Evidence and Reasons for the Christian Faith video channel. I'm sorry about that audio. It might have been a little rough because I forgot to cut my mic. I'm so sorry about that, guys. Today, I know it's like in the middle of the night, but I got really pumped when I found out about this article written by my colleague, Barry Setterfield. He and I are good friends, but I had supported some of his views about decaying speed of light, and I'd since changed my views, and so it's just a different viewpoint on the models of young Earth creationist cosmology. But he wrote such an excellent summary of articles from the secular world. So he did not, to his credit, in the article I'm going to read, did not interject creationism. He's just showing how the Big Bang is just kind of self-destructing. Also at the end, I'm going to show Rebekah Davis, who made a very good critique of the Big Bang. It wasn't completely accurate, but just some rooms where there are minor corrections, but she overall got a lot of it right. She got this from a lot of she got this from references I gave her that afternoon before she got on the show and said all this. I'm just like, wow, that was impressive how well she remembered everything. And she articulated it well, given only like an afternoon of being spooled up. She called me and said, Sal, can you help me on the Big Bang? I'm like, okay, this is a tough topic. And she digested those papers and devoured it and read through it. And I'm like, for someone who's not a specialist, someone who's not had really the level of college physics I had, I just like, oh my goodness, it was impressive. So I'm proud of her. I mean, just for the record, Rebekah and I do not share the same theological views on a lot of things, but she has been very supportive of my work from a scientific standpoint, and she did great science. And I have people here on the channel, scientists who do not share my theological views, but if they do good science, they're welcome here. I generally try to be welcoming. There are a few people that are not welcome here, and I probably banned 300 people. And that's just the way it goes. I just don't have time for some of the things that go on the internet. We don't cover theology here that much. I mean, people know my views are evangelical, and I have Reformed roots, and that's pretty much all I have to say on that. I try to focus on science here, on the changed lives, Christian testimony. We have also, I have covered a little archaeology at some point. I might have some shows that are critical of other religions that are in opposition to the Christian faith. So let me just greet people here. We have Omer and Kevin and Hillary's emails and Linda. So thank you all for joining today. So let me read. Let me take this one down. And I'm going to share my screen. You see me looking back and forth, it's partly because I have my smartphone with me. It's doing the video, and my screen shares are from another computer. So I'm just going to read from this article here by Barry Setterfield. He is a creationist, but he's not going to cite any creationist literature. This is going to be pretty much just pure quotations from the secular world and some commentary. So this is, let me just make a little comment here. This is going to be some good stuff. I have watched the evolution controversy over the last 40 years, and I've seen it go from like it almost seemed that abiogenesis was solved and evolution's true and the Big Bang is for real. And just starting to see all these sacred cows just being taken down one at a time. For starting with abiogenesis, then eukaryotic evolution is now challenged. By the way, there's a good chance I'm tentatively scheduled for Tuesday on Modern Day Debate to talk about evolution. I hate doing debates except for marketing, and even then I'm not that excited because of Brandolini's law, what they call the BS asymmetry principle. And I've also not been paired up with partners that I think could really help the cause. They try well, but I'd rather do solo. I'm sorry to be snobbish, but you know, I am a professional researcher in this, and that's where I feel very comfortable. And so where was I? Yeah, just announcing I'll be on Modern Day Debate. I'm gonna just okay. So I've said I've seen the sacred cows kind of being taken down, and people are like, you can't. The Big Bang is so solid. I'm just like, no. And I saw this coming from like say way back in 2005. And then when I went to graduate school studying physics, I really began to see it fall, you know, get a little bit falling apart. And it wasn't in the press, but I had professors that doubted it openly. George Mason, one professor that doubted dark matter at Johns Hopkins, my graduate school. So there were always these hints. And I said, if the Big Bang can be taken down, then, you know, there's a possibility for young Earth creationism. The Big Bang invokes what they call inflation, but that's been under a lot of criticism. And one suggestion is to solve, instead of inflation, to use variable speed of light. Of course, that would solve the distant starlight problem for the young Earth creationist. The James Webb Telescope is giving some hints of a young Earth creationist view. It's not conclusive, but it's a little friendlier than you think. Combined with variable speed of light, this is looking promising. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just look at the problems with the Big Bang based on this article by Setterfield, where he's just quoting scientists and their astonishment. And it ties to things that go deeper, and I just have links if people want to pursue it. Rebekah has articulated it. This is going to be a deep topic, but I just, I mean, I'm not going to cover it all in one felt swoop. So let me just get to the article and we'll try to get through it. I'm excited. This is, you know, I was a theistic evolutionist, then an old Earth creationist, then a young Earth creationist. One can certainly believe in old Earth creationism and still be a Christian. I really believe that. About a third of the young Earth creationist researchers that I know personally or have read about, they used to be old Earth creationists. So I really do. I think fundamentally a lot of old Earth creationists are on this. You know, they're on friendly terms with young Earth creationists. Where there is a big divide is between is between the creationists, both young and old, and the ID proponents versus the theistic evolutionists like Joshua Swamidas. The theistic evolutionists are just like, they slobber over Darwin, and no matter how bad the evidence is, they still swear by it, and there's like no doubt. And I'm just like, guys, you know, the science behind evolutionary theory is just pathetic. It's a farce. It doesn't belong. It doesn't belong side by side with other theoretical disciplines, like say electromagnetism. You know, even Jerry Coyne said, in science's pecking order, evolutionary biology lurks somewhere near the bottom, far closer to the pseudoscience of phrenology than to physics. That's how bad it is. And that's the same author who wrote Why Evolution is True. So sorry to be harsh here, but it's just bad. But I've seen it falling apart. And I don't know how I got on that topic, but why don't I just dig into this article by Barry Setterfield, and it's awesome. The link to access it's in the video description. So let's get to it. Problems for the Big Bang from the James Webb Space Telescope. So the James Webb Space Telescope is this newfangled telescope that can look really deep into space. All right, so get to it. The images obtained by the James Webb Space Telescope, such as the above, have been awe-inspiring to many. There's a picture of it here. And hang on, guys. Right when I'm about to talk, I'm being buzzed by a bug, and I'm going to get some pesticide to zap him. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, if that bug comes and bothers me, I'm going to zap him. All righty. They show a great multitude of brilliant galaxies in the vastness of the universe, and so far back in time that they are very close to the inception of the cosmos, or colloquially, the moment of the Big Bang. Many scientists have been surprised by the number of galaxies. Thousands of times the anticipated number of galaxies have been imaged. Quote, no one was expecting anything like this, says Michael Colchin of the University of Texas, Austin. Galaxies are exploding out of the woodwork, says Rachel Somerville of the Flatiron Institute. This is way outside of the box of what models were predicting, says Garth Illingworth of University of California, Santa Cruz. Since the first results came in on the 12th July 2022, a series of scientific papers has also registered surprise, disbelief, and even panic. Indeed, panic was the first word used in the title to an article about JWST results by 16 astrophysicists led by Leonardo Ferreira. Authors of other papers report that there are many more full-size galaxies than expected. Many stars seemed over 1 billion years old and had an abundance of elements the theory suggested should have taken 5 billion years to build up. Yet this multitude of mature galaxies with smooth disks and neat spiral arms is only 235 to 500 million years out from the beginning of it all, the Big Bang event. All the new data flies in the face of Big Bang theory, which has been built up over the last 75 years and taught that way publicly by Big Bang theorists. These theorists are facing a crisis. Quote, right now I find myself lying awake at 3 in the morning, says Alison Kirkpatrick, an astronomer at the University of Kansas Lawrence, and wondering if everything I've done is wrong, and wondering if everything I've done is wrong. Summarizing the Big Bang model. The Zerner asked, what will this do to the Kalam cosmological argument? Well, I don't know. I guess it'll have to be rewritten. There's a better argument than the Big Bang than the Kalam cosmological based on the Big Bang. I've cited it based on F.J. Belinfanti's interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is independent of cosmology. But William Lane Craig's a philosopher, not a physicist. Okay. The many scientific papers contrast the James Webb Space Telescope data with a standard Big Bang model. In that model, it is postulated for some time after the beginning there was a dark period with no galaxies or stars. It was initially expected that this dark period would last for some 500 million atomic years, up to 1 billion years after the Big Bang. After that, galaxies should only gradually appear in their numbers start to build up. These galaxies were expected to be ragged and even disrupting each other until full-size galaxies had formed and stabilized. This Big Bang model, which astrophysicists and cosmologists have been promoting, is based on gravitational interactions forming all structures in the universe. In summary, it goes something like this. After the initial Big Bang event, matter had to cool, form neutral atoms, and by a gradual process of gravitational agglomeration, organize itself to form the first stars, and then very small galaxies. These very small galaxies then collided and interacted with each other to build up bigger galaxies, and the gravitational process continued to eventually form much larger, full-size galaxies. The stars within those galaxies built up the various elements in their interiors by a process of nuclear burning, and then at the end of their life cycle exploded these elements into their environs. It is thought it would take 3 successive generations of such stars to provide the proportions of the various elements and their observed quantities. Distance of images from the Big Bang origin. Galaxies' distances are measured by the redshift by the letter Z. The higher the number, the more distant they are, and hence closer to the Big Bang initial event. The earliest galaxy seen by Hubble Space Telescope had a redshift of Z equals 11, thought to be around 400 million years after the Big Bang. This was a surprise since it was so close to the Big Bang. They expected the earliest galaxies to be up to 1 billion years after the Big Bang, but more surprises were in store. The Webb telescope was expected to penetrate the dark period of Z equals 20, or about 180 million years after the Big Bang. The initial Webb telescope results encompass redshifts from Z equals 11 to Z equals 16.7. This latter value translates to 235 million years after the Big Bang. In other words, this telescope's first exploration is looking at structures that were in existence from about 400 million years right back to only 235 million years after the Big Bang. This has caused some problems with the standard model. Galaxies far more numerous than expected. First, in contrast to the Big Bang model, which predicts only a few disorganized galaxies at the beginning, the galaxies become more numerous, not less. More numerous, not less, as the moment of the Big Bang is neared. At redshift of Z equals 5, galaxies are 10 times more numerous than theory predicted. At redshifts greater than 10, then Z equals 10, galaxies are 100,000 times more numerous than expected. Whoops! First, okay, all right, just had to do a little housekeeping there. Galaxies fully mature extremely early. Second, these distant early galaxies are fully mature. With smooth disks and neat spiral arms. For this to happen just 35 million years after the Big Bang is impossibly early for standard cosmology. Even the possibility that some galaxies seen in the Webb telescope are 400 million years after the Big Bang defies their model. Let me read that again. For this to happen just 235 million years after the Big Bang is impossibly early. Impossibly early for standard cosmology. Even the possibility that some galaxies seen in the Webb telescope are 400 million years after the beginning defies their model. The problem is much worse if they are at the minimum distance for this data set at 235 million years from the Big Bang. Galaxies massive without any signs of mergers. Third, there's no sign of galaxy mergers building up to these bigger galaxies. and these galaxies are full-size spirals like our own Milky Way system. The masses of these galaxies range from 10 to the 9th, 1 billion, up to 10 to the 11th, 100 billion suns, which is normal for large galaxies. In other words, these galaxies give no appearance of being built up by mergers with smaller objects, but they already exist, fully formed, extremely close to the origin of the cosmos. Oh my goodness, fully formed, fully formed. That sounds very creationist, just saying. Fourth, many of those early galaxies are brilliant. The measurements suggest they may be up to 600 times more brilliant than galaxies in our immediate area. The expectation had been that galaxies would start out relatively fainter and build up mass and brighter with time. This is not what the Webb telescope shows. The original early brightness of these galaxies compared with much lower brightnesses of galaxies now ties with the increasing brilliance of quasars as we go closer to the origin. Stars in these galaxies appear mature. Fifth, the Webb telescope has a variety of filters which allows colors of the stars in these galaxies and their composition to be determined. Gravitational astronomy has a color mass relationship which gives the approximate age of the stars, as does the amount of hydrogen present if nuclear burning has occurred. Using these factors indicates that stars in these extremely early galaxies show an equivalent of 1 billion years of burning. Yet these galaxies are not even 500 million years from the Big Bang, let alone having had 1 billion years of burning for their stars once they had formed. This unexpected result calls into question the whole Big Bang approach to the age of the stars. Chemical elements present in the galaxies. Okay, just you can have a look at that. The near-infrared spectrograph with the James Webb Space Telescope identified the chemical composition of the galaxy emitted at 13.1 billion years ago. Sixth, in this image from the Webb telescope, the filters and other equipment have determined from the characteristic wavelength of emitted light that the elements hydrogen, oxygen, and neon are present and prominent. This is a problem for current Big Bang theory. Let me read this again. Sixth, in this image from the James Webb telescope, so it's this image here, the filters and other equipment have determined from the characteristic wavelength of emitted light that the elements hydrogen and oxygen are present and prominent. This is a problem for current Big Bang theory. At this early stage in galaxy development, only the elements hydrogen and helium should be prominent, with small quantities of lithium and beryllium. The elements oxygen and neon were not meant to be present initially, but rather built up in the interiors of stars and then exploded out into the host galaxy. According to Big Bang theory, the time for these elements to become prominent in galaxies is the order of billions of years. Yet they are enriching a galaxy only a few hundred million years after their origin. James Webb Space Telescope data question accelerating expansion. Seventh, one class of statements by astronomers is confusing when the Webb telescope data are considered. These astronomers are locked into a scenario with an accelerating expansion of the universe, when in fact the data disprove that. A word of explanation is thus needed to see the problem. Under ordinary circumstances, an object of a given size will look smaller and smaller with decreasing distance. The farther away from you it is, the smaller it looks. There's a little problem with that, but we'll just go with this. The farther away it is from you, the smaller it looks. However, with accelerating expansion of the cosmos in vogue since about 2000, a different optical effect kicks in. Beyond a certain point, when distance has already made them small, objects will begin to look larger and larger with distance, not smaller and smaller. This is where there's a problem. This is because their light is meant to have them when they were much closer to us. This is because their light is meant to have left them when they are much closer to us. As a result of this theoretical accelerating expansion, astronomers and cosmologists were expecting to see the galaxies look larger than would normally be expected for that distance. Instead, it can be shown that they were the right size for that distance under ordinary circumstances, but smaller than the accelerating model predicted. Since these scientists still held to the accelerating expansion, the only way they could explain these results was if the galaxies were very small. This ignored the fact that these galaxies had masses up to 100 billion suns with well-ordered disks and neat spiral arms. If they truly were as small as the cosmologists claim, the density of these galaxies would be impossibly high, and the other data indicate these galaxies are the same size as our Milky Way system, as referenced by other researchers such as in reference 8. Since the accumulation of data show that the effects of accelerating expansion are not present, then different options should be considered as in reference 13. Summary of the results from the Webb telescope. In summary, the James Webb Space Telescope, or Webb telescope, has imaged galaxies ranging from 235 million years out to 400 million years after the Big Bang beginning. There are little or no signs of galaxy mergers occurring. However, these galaxies have masses of 1 billion up to 100 billion stars like our sun. They are also fully mature and have smooth disks and neat spiral arms. The galaxies are up to 100,000 times more numerous than expected and are very much closer to the moment of the Big Bang than any theory predicted. Furthermore, their brilliance, up to 600 times that of galaxies in our own area, contrasts with the expectation that galaxies start off small and faint and increase in mass and brilliance with time. Despite being so close to the Big Bang beginning, the stars which make up these galaxies seem mature as they have color characteristics and a hydrogen abundance associated with an age of about 1 billion years. This is supposed to be supported by the presence of other chemical elements. Finally, the Webb telescope data indicate that the expected effects of accelerated cosmic expansion are not present, so the idea needs to be re-examined. Conclusion: from the above abbreviated list of Webb telescope data, it appears the cosmos started off in an almost pristine condition, then faded with time. It also appears the Big Bang model is in need of a total overhaul, or perhaps a new approach altogether is required. No kidding. It is apparent that full maturity and brilliance for galaxies and stars was achieved as early as 235 million years after the Big Bang with a standard model based on gravitational interactions. This is an impossibility, even given the most favorable conditions. There are a few alternatives left to consider. A key one is the plasma physics applied to astronomy based on laboratory plasma experiments by Anthony Peratt at LANL. Don't necessarily endorse that, but anyway, there he showed that plasma interactions can form all the types of galaxies very quickly. In reference 14, that's questionable. Reference 15 applies these principles to recent astronomical discoveries. Using all this information, it seems possible, using known physics, to formulate a model different from the Big Bang, but still in conformity with the James Webb Space Telescope data and its time constraints. Okay. Let me just pause here. What do you think, guys, huh? Isn't that awesome? And I'm going to look at some of the emails. Hillary's email says, I've always wondered if instead of the Big Bang, there were many white holes. We really, I'm just saying it's tough. There's some problem with white holes, theoretically. Philip Dennis's young Earth creationist has been at odds with Russell Humphreys and white hole stuff. That being said, I'm actually promoting Russell Humphreys' work on geomagnetism, even though I disagree with his relativity. So that's kind of good. I have something to agree with Russell Humphreys on because I like the guy. and I felt kind of bad I had to disagree with him about white holes. So this one, tired as in relaxed wavelength, or is that light speed isn't universal? So there was this whole thing about tired light. That really is a terrible name. It should mean that the idea is the farther out the light is, as it traverses a variety of things on its way here, it loses energy. So it's tired. If you lose energy, we call that tired. But it has such a negative connotation. Redshifted is a little bit more neutral. And I posted reasons why redshift can be induced by free electron plasmas. We have experimental evidence of that. Strong experimental evidence, like radio waves going through the solar corona. That is well established, and I can't believe people are not taking that seriously, since there could be tons of amounts of electron plasmas when light travels. The loss of energy would mean slower wavelength. Slower speed. It would have a lower frequency, same speed, lower frequency. But again, we really don't know if the speed of light is constant. And that's a whole nother topic. There have been various theories putting variable speed of light on the table. And certainly if one believes in inflation, you have this incredibly hard to swallow scenario where things move faster than the speed of light effectively. They don't feel acceleration, it's just separation by space. It's just, so when I started to hear what cosmological theories, the mainstream, what they really say, I said, young Earth creationism is not any more outrageous than anything else that's on the table as far as the origins. There are parts of this that need more fleshing out, like this, the idea that galaxies are brighter when they're far away. This deals with the Tolman Surface Brightness test. And I did provide a link to Eric Lerner's video on this, and Lerner didn't do a good job of explaining it. I'm looking for someone that can. Michael Disney did a pretty good layman description saying, the astronomers, the cosmologists said, well, what's the use of, when you get to Hubble looking really, really deep, we're not going to see anything because the Big Bang predicts that you won't be able to see it. And then he said, imagine our surprise when we saw all these galaxies. And now imagine their surprise when we're seeing even more with the James Webb Telescope. I'll point out another surprise is that the galaxies look mature. Like, say, the galaxies close to us. Doesn't it seem then that you don't have an evolutionary progression? That this does look like, this is evidence. We are seeing distant starlight almost, but not quite in real time. When I'd say not quite, maybe it's delayed a few thousand years. We don't know. But if the galaxies close to us look like the galaxies far away, that may mean that there's not any time delay of any substance anyway. That would be positive evidence for spatial variability in the speed of light, or some sort of, much faster transport. And again, this has been on the table, and I've had my critics insisting how good all the Big Bang is, and you gotta just reevaluate and say this does not look good. It also, Lerner has pointed out why this is evidence, strong evidence against the expansion of the universe, and that would be the death of the Big Bang. He wrote the book, The Big Bang Never Happened. And so momentum against the Big Bang as a theory is now starting to build up force, because just like what happened to abiogenesis, the weight of the data is starting to crush it. And the reason I'm up this late, I was excited. I'm like, I feel vindicated after years of being kind of dismissed for some of my views. It's feeling pretty good right now. So, we're not out of the woods, but it's looking bad for those who swore by the Big Bang. And I love Hugh Ross and Buzz Rana to death, but and William Lane Craig. But from a scientific standpoint, you can't run away from the data. And at the very least, I'd say it's really premature to be embracing the Big Bang with all of these problems. So, I mean, in my heart, I'd say it's falsified. But if I were to be a little bit more reserved and circumspect, I'll say, well, until you resolve all these problems, maybe it shouldn't be officially noted as the truth. Just say this is a really provisional, speculative model because it's had so many failures. You just heard all the failures being listed here. And I banned one critic in particular who was insisting there was all this good evidence, and I thought he was kind of trolling my channel. I banned him. He appeared under a sock, and I banned him again. And just like, dude, have some manners. So that's that for that. So I put links in the text in the video description. It's some of the stuff is thick. That's just the nature of physics. And let me play Rebekah. As I promised, I was so proud of her. I gave her many of the references that you see in the video description. She called me up and she said, Sal, how do you criticize the Big Bang? You told me that there are problems with it. I'm just like, oh my goodness, you're going to have me try to explain this in one afternoon and then you're going to give it that night. And she did a good job. Now, not every point was spot on, but she was darn near close. So just give her credit for doing this in just half a day. She got spooled on all the best, on some really good literature. She especially liked the Michael Disney article. So I'm just going to share. I'm going to share her. See, let me do a stop screen share. I'm going to share her. It's like a 15-minute clip, and she did such an awesome job. So let me share it and then we'll wrap up. Let me find it here. Okay. All right. And here we go, guys.
Hello, everyone. Tonight, I'm really excited to have Nidamos on the channel. We're going to talk about a bunch of different topics. And so Nidamos has a channel. If you guys know it, it's by the name Nidamos. If you don't know it, the link is in the description. And please do subscribe because he's just started out recently. And most of you are atheists. He's a fellow atheist, and he does a lot of talking about his experience leaving Christianity, and I think it would benefit a lot of you. So please do subscribe to his channel, and welcome.
Thank you. And I actually just recently updated my channel's vanity URL. So I'm Nidamos_the animated atheist. So there you go.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Manny. Yeah, so we both read this book. That's what prompted the stream, right? God and the Big Bang, or is it God of the Big Bang?
God of the Big Bang. I'll put the picture up on the screen here.
Yes.
So yeah, we were both in the chat on Capturing Christianity, and they had the author of this book on, and Nidamos said he was going to read it, so I said I'll read it, and then we agreed to have a talk about it. So, but we're going to talk about more than just that book, I think. So
Yeah.
We can launch in where whatever you want to discuss first.
Right. So the first thing is what I find fascinating, right, between your channel, Capturing Christianity, and a book like this, right, is how you guys land on like the age of the universe and the age of the earth, right? And on the one hand, when you guys put forth like the Kalam cosmological argument, and maybe you don't do it this way, but like the force of the Kalam and what is it, like the fine tuning argument, are precluded on the sciences that validate a universe with a beginning, right? And the sciences that are trying to establish that the universe has a beginning are all seemingly evidentially pointing to an old universe, right? So at minimum, if you're going to appeal to those arguments, you seem to be granting that at minimum the universe is old, and then maybe you could try to swiggle, slip your way out of saying something like, well, the universe, yeah, that's incomprehensibly old, fine, but the earth is special because God made it special, right? And he did so early on reasons, right? So that's one of the things that I wanted to address with you, because if you agree with the what does William Lane Craig call it? He calls it like
The
the
Kalam
preponderance of
cosmological
like the preponderance of evidence in support of the a universe with a beginning, right? Or the very like or the the cumulative case that the universe is fine-tuned.
I love this question. Thank you for asking such a great question. And so let me just say, first of all, for anybody who doesn't know or understand my position, because I feel like it needs to be said, I am a young earth creationist, but I don't care what Christians believe about this. There are great Christians who believe in, the Big Bang. There's great Christians who believe in evolution. There's great Christians who believe in all kinds of things. So I don't care about this issue with regard to Christians. And so I am not proposing that everyone needs to be a young earth creationist. Like, that is not my belief at all. So I find all the beliefs valid. I have reasons for believing what I believe. But, I'm perfectly accepting of other beliefs. So, but I will say this, I don't think that I have to accept the Big Bang to accept the universe having a beginning. And the reason is because we have limited energy in the stars, right? And so we know eventually the stars are going to run out of energy. Now, if we work that backwards, we know that they can't always have been burning, right? Because then they would have already been burned out, right? There would be no, if the universe didn't have a beginning, the heat would have been used up a long time ago. So I don't have to accept the Big Bang in order to believe the universe had a beginning. And I do believe it had a beginning. Now, go ahead.
So, okay, let me get this straight. So you just don't accept Big Bang cosmology then?
Okay, well, what are you asking in contrast? Like, what do you?
Yeah, so like, you don't. Okay, so you're trying to basically apply like the second, like a very lay understanding of like the second law of thermodynamics to point toward the universe having a beginning, but that beginning doesn't necessarily have to be the Big Bang. That's
right.
what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. Now I understand you a lot better.
Cool. Yeah. So for me, the cosmological argument, if I cared to make it, which I don't, because I I actually don't get much into this apologetics world, even though people like to call me a Christian apologist. I really don't care about the Kalam cosmological argument or any of the other arguments, really. So, but like, I'm glad other people do, because some people need those arguments and some people want those arguments. So, you know, I don't mean to be dismissive of anyone else's work. I think William Lane Craig is wonderful and he's done a lot of great work. So I can accept the Kalam as a valid argument without accepting all of the things that, you know, go along with
people
the Big
use in
Bang.
support of the argument, right? Like, so what you're saying is when Christians use those kinds of scientific studies and data as evidence in favor of their argument, that's not necessarily what you would do.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
That makes a lot more sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So that I do find that really interesting and maybe even maybe a little frustrating for me, because as someone that was pretty into apologetics as like part of like my ministry, right? I really wanted to help people have that, help them not feel stupid for believing in Christianity, right?
Right.
And so when like their community of people in the collegiate fields of study on like the universe or like biology, whatever, is all saying like, hey, like the universe is incomprehensibly old, or the earth seems to appear to have a fantastically long age. All of that, like, you know, breathing down their necks. And, you know, well, in old earth, in old earth and old creation could still have a beginning, right? In fact, that's great evidence for a beginning, right? And so I would run these kinds of apologetics and reasons for belief using the modern scientific data to try and, you know, bolster their faith and their commitments to the Bible.
And I think that's beautiful. And a lot of people are doing that, you know, including the lady who wrote this book. And so, but, you know, I know you guys who watch this channel are skeptical people, right? So I want to give you some reasons to be skeptical about the Big Bang. Okay. And so, I don't know how many people really understand this, because I think most people, if they're in this field, they are pressured to accept the Big Bang and be quiet about it. Okay, but you know, even so, I think many of them are accepting it without truly thinking about what it comes with. And this is not something I'm making up. Okay, there are scientists talking about this, and not young Earth creationists. There's an astrophysicist named Michael Disney. You can look up his thing. There's there's a letter that was written and signed. It's like I think if you look under like cosmological statement, something like that, you will find a letter that was written and signed by a bunch of scientists who say, look, it is like not fair that the Big Bang is like, people are being pressured to believe in it when it has so many, we're supposed to believe in all these hypothetical entities, right? So let me just break it down. What is wrong with the Big Bang? It is built on pillars that all of them must stand for it to work. And many of them are involving hypothetical entities that we have absolutely no evidence for. Okay. So what do we have evidence for with the Big Bang? Pillar number one is expansion. We actually have evidence for expansion, right? We see the cosmic background radiation. We have the redshift. Okay. Those are pillars of, you know, that, I mean, that's the pillar of the Big Bang that is most like observable, like that. I mean, that we have the most evidence for. Okay. Then, but the Big Bang absolutely falls flat. Okay. You can't have it if the next pillar doesn't work. Okay. And that's the inflationary theory. Okay. So if inflationary theory, and this is something that was proposed. I don't remember how many years ago. I'm probably going to botch it, but 50 years ago or something. But basically, it is based on it solves two problems that were absolutely fatal to the Big Bang. It solves the flatness problem and the horizon problem. Okay, so inflationary theory must be true for the Big Bang to be true. And we have reason to believe that inflationary theory is not true. Roger Penrose, great scientist, wrote against it, said no, it doesn't work. Here's why. And then I don't have the scientific expertise to go into the details on that. But this is not young Earth creationists saying this. This is not Christians saying this. These are scientists criticizing this pillar of this theory. Okay, then in order for the Big Bang to work, you have to have dark matter. And dark matter is something absolutely made up. There is no observational evidence for it. What they will say is, oh, but the math works. But it is completely circular reasoning, because what they did is they realized that if there wasn't some other factor, at play, the Big Bang was not going to work. So they made up dark matter. They made the math fit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sure. And so we have no observational evidence for dark matter. So we're supposed to suddenly believe that the majority of the matter in the universe is absolutely unobservable. I'm sorry, guys. If you believe that, why are you complaining that I believe in God? That's absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. Don't be gullible.
Isn't that kind of fun? So one of the things that's really interesting about this exchange right here is I rarely, even when atheists are slamming you with indicting God on various things of the Old Testament, or talking through morality, I rarely see you this fired up. There's something about this that's very important to you.
It annoys me. It annoys me that people are gullible to believe all this stuff just because a scientist said it, okay? When there is no scientific reason to believe it, okay? That annoys me. Okay, two more things, and then actually, there's one more that I can describe. One I can't even describe because I don't even understand it. There has to be these seeds. I don't even know what that is, okay? But, and so I don't know how that works. Then has to be dark energy. If you don't have dark energy, they made up dark energy. Why? Because they realized that for the acceleration to suddenly take place in the Big Bang after a period of time, they needed something to do that. Otherwise, their theory wasn't working. So they made up dark energy. No observable evidence for dark energy. They will tell you, oh, but the math works. That's because they figured out what they would need for the math, and then they applied those characteristics to dark energy. They applied the math in a circular way. So we have no evidence of this. There is no reason to believe that. So there's good reasons to believe that the Big Bang has failed. Okay. Another thing is that it did not follow the predictions when they made the Hubble telescope. They did not expect to find galaxies that far out that were so bright. And so the observations that we make of the distant galaxies totally blow out what we think they should look like according to the Big Bang model. Okay.
Okay. Well, all right, let's pause there. So when we do use like the James Webb telescope or the Hubble telescope to observe the travel of light, incredible, mind-boggling distances. Okay. When we as humans are doing that, we are making like a fair amount of assumptions about the data. So with the assumption of like light and its generally observed speed throughout the universe, right? We don't seem to be able to alter this like fundamental constant, as it were, right? Like it can like bend and get frustrated by gravitation or whatever, but on the whole, right, it seems to be traveling at a consistent rate. Now, given that, right, and you make that concession, like these telescopes are finding these astronomically far objects, right, illuminating
Yeah.
our night sky. If they are as far away as people are saying they are, then it takes an incredible amount of time for that light to travel that distance, right?
Yes.
A time t that is much larger than 10,000.
Yes. Yes.
So do you agree with me then that the universe
Absolutely.
is incomprehensibly old?
Well, no. I'm
Damn.
agreeing with you that light it takes a long time to I mean, like to
I
get
almost got her,
the
guys.
starlight, right, to us, it seems like the distant starlight problem is a problem. Okay.
Okay.
But without inflation, okay, the Big Bang has the same problem because there's not enough time for.
Well, I'm
the
not even saying that
I'm just
we
saying.
try and re-accept
Yeah.
the Big Bang, right? I'm not
Yeah.
even, that's not even on
Right.
the table. I'm
Right.
just bringing up one data point and that as like as a truth to reality. And
Yeah.
then what do we do now that if we agree that that's true, then what do we do for the claim that
Yeah.
the universe is incomprehensibly old?
And I don't know. So I don't come as a person who has all the answers to how the universe got here, when it got here, and everything like that. I'm not coming to you as in that position.
Okay.
But I do want to point this out. When Roger Penrose started attacking the inflationary model, do you know now what has been proposed as an alternative to that?
No.
Speed of light being different. Now, so if
I've heard that one
scientific
before
model,
from young Earth creationists, though, that like
oh yeah, I know, and
he's got like a children's steering wheel throttle that he's just like speed of light, and he just like zooms it up.
Now I'm fine with that proposal. Hey,
Right.
who knows? I don't know if the speed of light has always been constant, but if we can apply that possibility to the Big Bang, why can't we apply it to my story?
Creationism, yeah.
So
yeah. That's fun. I love how
animated I got.
Passionate you are about that particular issue. I did not expect that. But hey, I think we have made the best 20 minutes of YouTube tonight. Okay.
Cool.
If anyone in the chat disagrees with that, there's something wrong with you.
And Jerome asked me to link the articles, and I will surely do that as soon as this stream is over.
Comment in
What's
your
that?
Put them in a pinned comment at the
Oh.
top of your comment
Oh,
on
yes.
your own video
Got
and
it.
put them in a pinned comment so people don't have to
Okay.
wade through all the other stuff in the description, which is already really long.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so that way when people come to the video, they can choose to either read the description or the pinned comment.
Perfect. Okay, so do we want to move on from that topic?
I think we should.
Okay. You had some other things that you were on your mind. Like, I wanted to ask you, do you think the creation narrative in Genesis is in conflict with scientific discoveries?
I'm muted. Thank you, Discerner. Yeah, that was that was Rebekah talking about the Big Bang, and that was interesting. So I think I'm very proud of how she handled herself and communicated this, and she got most of the details right. Uh, being just a little off is certainly better than the whole Big Bang cosmology, which is breaking at the seams. This is a great day of vindication for me personally. I don't see these problems ending anytime soon. And it's just like, well, how many failures and how many failed predictions have to keep happening before you decide, well, maybe this isn't the right model at all? And there is one snotty astrophysicist on Swami Das's hostile pseudoscience website, and snotty astrophysicists, maybe two of them there, they're eating crow now, and this just feels good. It just feels really good. Need some encouragement. As we heard in the earlier article, we had one of the scientists saying she's up till 3 a.m., middle of the night, wondering if all that she's been working on has been wrong, and it's looking like it is. I mean, can't run away from that. So let's see. I think I'm just going to shut it down. Let me just say a quick prayer for my friends before I say goodnight. And also, let's give honor and glory to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Lord, you have told us to acknowledge you in all our ways. May the day to keep marching forward. You have ordained this day. It says in Proverbs 25:2 that it's the glory of God to conceal a matter. It's the glory of kings to search out a matter. And you have hidden away things for us to discover in the 21st century that are pointing to your creation, that's destroying abiogenesis theory, evolutionary theory. Now maybe even the Big Bang theory is falling apart, and the cosmological models, and maybe the evolutionary model of the quote-unquote evolutionary model of the solar system. There could be evidence that the fossil record, that life is young, the fossil record are young, that the Earth itself is young, maybe the whole solar system, maybe the whole universe. This would accord with a literal reading of the Genesis account and also the genealogy of Jesus in Matthew chapter 1 and Luke chapter 3. And it will point that the Bible is trustworthy and the inspired word of God. And we certainly need reassurance that the Bible is true in this day and age, in the time of uncertainty. Please be with my beloved sister, Janet Duttridge. She is a widow and disabled. You have had a special heart for widows, Lord. You've commanded the true religion is to care for widows and orphans in their distress. All that I could do for Janet is to uplift her in my prayers. Thank you for this, the witness she has been to all of us, that she has clung to you despite all her afflictions. I lift up to Zerner and his the estate issues his family is going through, with perhaps an uncle that is pilfering the estate in violation of the trust of him being the executor. And I lift up Arctic Timberwolf and the damage to his eyes from the explosion, the dynamite explosion, I believe, that happened when he was working on, doing blasting for just, I guess, building roads or whatever. There are other needs, Lord. There are people all over the world that are suffering. There are Christians in Ukraine. And Lord, I just lift them up, these Christians, up to you. I also lift up the Russians, Lord, who may have trusted in Jesus Christ, and they're being forced, they're under oppression by a tyrannical leader. It says in Ecclesiastes, one sinner destroyeth much good. And that is definitely the case. I ask your mercies on Christians all over the world who are being persecuted. um, uh, in so many ways, especially in Muslim lands. And be with us, Lord. Help this channel to be honoring to you. We ask all these things in the blessed name of Jesus Christ. Amen. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. And I'll close out with a video here. My usual favorite video. And Discerner, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the kind words. Have a great evening, everyone. The Lord richly bless you.